The soldier who came home to an empty Main Street. When Captain James Carter returned to his hometown after nearly a year overseas, he expected to see the same Main Street he remembered. Instead, he saw boarded windows. The old bakery was gone. The bookstore was empty. The diner had a handwritten sign taped to the door, closed until further notice. James slowed his truck. This was supposed to be home. He had spent years dreaming about this moment. Coming back. Walking through the front door, hugging his mother, seeing his younger sister. But now, as he drove through town, he felt something he hadn't expected. Grief. James had grown up in a Pennsylvania town called Franklin Hollow. It wasn't rich, it wasn't famous, but it had always been alive. People knew each other. Children played outside. Workers filled the streets every morning. Local stores stayed open late. Then prices rose. Jobs disappeared. Businesses closed. Families moved away. The town didn't collapse in one dramatic moment. It slowly became weaker, just like a bridge developing tiny cracks. James parked in front of his mother's house. Before he could knock, the door opened. His mother, Linda, stood there. She covered her mouth. "My boy," James smiled. "Hi, Mom." She hugged him so tightly that his army duffel bag fell to the ground. "You came home." "I promised." Inside, James noticed that the house looked different. The furniture was the same. The photographs were still on the wall, but there were fewer lights on. His mother had started saving electricity. The refrigerator was nearly empty. "Mom, what's going on?" She looked away. "I'm okay." James knew that answer. He had heard it hundreds of times. "I'm fine. I'm okay. Don't worry." He sat beside her. "Tell me." Linda finally sighed. "The store closed." James looked at her. His mother had owned a small clothing store for 22 years. "What?" "People stopped shopping." She stared at the floor. "Everyone is trying to save money." James looked through the window toward Main Street. His mother continued. "I couldn't afford the rent anymore." James felt anger rising inside him, not at his mother, at the situation, at the helplessness, at the feeling that people were working harder but somehow falling further behind. That night, James couldn't sleep. He walked outside. The town was almost completely dark. Then he saw a light, the old community center. He walked toward it. Inside, a group of residents were sitting around a table. James recognized some of them: teachers, store owners, farmers, retired workers. They were discussing the town's future. A woman looked up. "James Carter?" "Yes." She smiled. "Welcome home." James sat down. "What are you working on?" The woman pointed to a map, trying to keep Franklin Hollow alive. James looked at the map. There were red marks everywhere. Closed businesses, empty buildings, unemployment, population loss. He asked, "Why hasn't anyone fixed this?" The room became quiet. Finally, an older man answered, "Because everyone keeps waiting for someone else." James understood. He had seen the same problem during military operations. If everyone waited for another person to act, nothing happened. He stood up. "Then let's stop waiting." The next morning, James called a meeting. Only 11 people came. But James didn't care. He had learned in the Army that a small team could accomplish extraordinary things if everyone understood the mission. He gave them one mission: keep local money local. They created a community marketplace. Local farmers could sell directly to residents. Small businesses could advertise together. Local restaurants agreed to purchase ingredients from nearby farms. Retired workers volunteered to mentor young people. James helped veterans find jobs with local companies. The first month was difficult. The second month was worse. People were skeptical. One businessman told James, "This sounds nice, Captain, but nice doesn't pay bills." James nodded. "You're right." He placed a folder on the table. "That's why we're measuring results." He showed them the numbers. Every week they tracked local purchases. Every new job, every business reopening, every dollar spent locally. Slowly, the numbers improved. Not dramatically, but consistently. Then something unexpected happened. James discovered that a closed warehouse near the highway was available at a low price. He proposed turning it into a shared distribution center. Small businesses could store products there. Farmers could deliver produce. Local stores could share transportation costs. It would reduce expenses for everyone. But they needed funding. James applied for community development assistance and worked with local officials and business owners to put together a formal plan. Weeks passed. Then came the letter. The project was approved. The warehouse reopened. Within months, several businesses began using it. A local farmer hired 2 workers. The diner reopened. The bakery returned. James's mother's clothing store reopened as part of the community marketplace. On opening day, Linda stood behind the counter with tears in her eyes. James walked in wearing jeans and a simple shirt. She smiled. "You did this." James shook his head. "No, Mom." He pointed outside. They did. People filled the street. Children carried shopping bags. Farmers sold produce. The diner served breakfast. Music played from the community center. For the first time in years, Main Street was crowded. Then James noticed an old man standing alone across the street. It was Mr. Harris. He had owned the town's hardware store before closing it. James walked over. "You coming back?" The old man smiled. "I've been waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For this." He pointed toward Main Street. "People." James laughed. Then Mr. Harris handed him a small metal key. James looked confused. "What is this?" "My old store." James stared at him. "I don't understand." "I've decided to reopen." James smiled. "That's your key." The old man shook his head. "No." He placed it in James's hand. "It's your reminder." "Reminder of what?" Mr. Harris looked down Main Street. "That a town doesn't die when one business closes." He paused. "It dies when everyone decides nothing can be done." James kept the key. He carried it in his pocket for years. He never forgot its weight. 1 year later, Franklin Hollow was still not wealthy. The economy was still difficult. Prices were still high. Some buildings were still empty. But something important had changed. People had stopped giving up. James eventually received orders to return to military duty. The night before he left, the town organized a small gathering. There were no television cameras, no politicians, no giant ceremony, just families, workers, farmers, shop owners, children. His mother stood beside him. "Are you scared to leave again?" James smiled. "Of course." Linda looked at the crowd. "You changed this town." James shook his head. "I just reminded them what they could do." His younger sister hugged him. "Come home again." James looked down Main Street. The lights were on. The diner was full. The bakery was open. His mother's store was busy. The warehouse was operating. People were talking, laughing, working, living. James looked at his army uniform. He had spent his career protecting people far from home, but now he understood something. Serving your country doesn't always mean standing on a battlefield. Sometimes service means helping a neighbor keep his business open. Sometimes it means buying from the farmer down the road. Sometimes it means creating a job for someone who thought they had no future. And sometimes it means coming home. James hugged his mother. Then he turned toward the waiting military vehicle. As he walked away, he looked back one final time. The Main Street sign was glowing above him. The town was alive. Not because someone had rescued it, because its people had decided they weren't finished yet. James climbed into the vehicle. His mother watched through tears. The vehicle pulled away. And behind him, Franklin Hollow kept moving. Because the soldier had come home. And he had left something behind. Not money. Not fame. Not a monument. He had left behind a belief. that even when an economy is struggling, even when businesses close, even when a community feels forgotten, people can still rebuild. One family, one job, one business, $1, one decision at a time.